even before I moved to Madison as bishop, I've always been fascinated with the figure of James Madison, our fourth president, friend of Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State, and probably most notably the father of the Constitution. It was his remarkable mind that envisioned the details of our federal government and how the three branches of government could work together. His house in Virginia, named Montpelier, is maybe 30 miles north of Monticello, Jefferson's House. And I've been there several times. In the 20th century, the DuPont family bought Montpelier and added all sorts of new additions and made changes to it. Wonderfully so. Maybe 10 years ago, they started restoring the house to what it was in the time of James Madison. And I was just there last year to see its restored glory. So when you walk in, you see it pretty much as it was in his time, with all the additions and accretions gone. I mention that because the first reading for Mass this Sunday is from the book of Chronicles, which narrates the destruction of the temple during the Babylonian captivity, the tragedy of sin and idolatry that led to that tremendously difficult period in the history of Israel, how the people are taken into captivity, but then a new king arises who allows them to go home. And not only that, gives them building materials and money to restore their temple. So the first temple destroyed in the time of Solomon is rebuilt. It's experiences restoration, as does the people. That second temple would be the temple existent at the time of Christ. We in Lent are all about asking the Lord to restore us, to take away our sin, our selfishness, those things that really don't belong to us in the first place. Those aspects of our character and our sinful habits that are not part of God's plan for us. That when he looks at us, that doesn't fit into the picture. This is who he wants us to be. So restoration is not about recreation or destruction. It's about bringing something back to its original splendor and integrity. Isn't that what conversion is about? That we want to become the person that God has called us to be and has loved us to be from the beginning. That's why we embrace this life of penance. That's why we go through Lent seeking deeper conversion through prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. Second reading is from Ephesians, which essentially is a narration of the kerygma, that by grace we have been saved through the death and resurrection of Christ, that the Lord comes into this world to take his world back and to take away our sin and death. Again, restoration. John's Gospel, John chapter 3, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him might have eternal life and may not perish. That John chapter 3, verse 17, you often see held up on a placard at sporting events, because it really contains the essential kernel of the gospel. God so loved the world that he sends us his Son, Jesus, to save us from sin. So our life, especially in Lent, is all about allowing the Lord to restore us, to wash away our sin, to take away all the things that are not part of who he wants us to be, so that at Easter we can shine with a greater and more brilliant